The whispering trees of Blackwood Creek. The old cabin sat hunched under my quiet trees, a very old building lost in the middle of Blackwood Creek. Its windows, like empty eyes, looked out at the growing forest, and a deep quiet hung in the air, broken only by the sound of leaves and the far off cry of a bird. Liam, a man whose easy smile often hid a troubled mind, had received the cabin from his uncle Silas, a man who liked to be alone and who had disappeared completely 6 months before. Liam had driven for many hours, the steady sound of his old truck a sleepy noise against the growing worry in his stomach. He knew little about Silas, only small memories from childhood of a rough man with strangely strong eyes and a room full of old, forbidden looking books. Now, as he stepped onto the porch, the air grew colder, and a shiver, not from the evening cold, went down his back. The lock on the heavy wooden door was rusty, but surprisingly, the door opened with a gentle push. Inside, dust birds danced in the last sunbeams coming through the dirty windows. The air was thick with a smell of old pepper, dampness, and something else, something metallic and a little sweet. Liam looked around the single room, seeing the very old fireplace, the worn chair, and a strong wooden table covered in dirt on the table among some dry leaves, and what looked like a petrified spider was a single old brass key. He picked it up, its cold weight surprisingly heavy in his hand. A faint scratching sound made him look at the far wall. It was a small, roughly cut wooden box built into the wall itself, almost hidden against the dark wood. The brass key fit perfectly. With a soft click, the lid opened. Inside, on some old soft cloth, was an old silver locket and a single yellow piece of paper. Liam carefully opened the paper. The handwriting, neat and exact, was surely Silas's. Liam, if you are reading this, I am already gone. The whispering trees hold a secret, a truth buried deep in their roots. They call to me, and I cannot fight it anymore. Do not try to understand, because understanding brings only getting stuck. The locket will show you the way if you are silly enough to follow. But be careful. Some paths, once taken, cannot be undone. Liam's heart beat fast. Getting stuck? Undone? This wasn't just a strange note, it was a warning. He opened the locket. Inside, instead of a photo, was a tiny detailed map. It wasn't a map of the cabin or even the nearby woods. It showed a winding path marked with strange symbols leading deeper into the forest towards a sharp mountain peak he vaguely remembered from his drive. That night, Lime couldn't sleep. Every sound the old cabin made, every whisper of the wind through the trees seemed louder, full of a bad feeling. The metallic smell in the air seemed stronger, almost sickly sweeter. He found himself walking around, the locket held tight in his hand, pulled to the window as if by an invisible force. The forest outside was a solid wall of black, the trees looking like bony fingers against the small bit of moonlight. He saw shadows move where there should be none, heard faint rustling sounds that weren't just the wind. The next morning, even with a strong feeling of fear, Liam decided to follow the map. He packed a small bag, a flashlight, and a good amount of doubt. The part on the locket was barely an animal trail covered with plants and spiky bushes. As he went deeper, the air grew noticeably colder, even though the sun was high up. The whispers of the trees became stronger, sounding less like wind and more like soft voices, making an unsettling sound. He checked the locket often, comparing the symbols on the map to strange carvings he began to see on the very old tree trunks, spirals, triangles, and symbols he didn't know, yet felt very unsettling. The metallic smell, the one he'd noticed in the cabin, grew stronger with every step, now mixed with the earthy smell of wet dirt and something else, something like old blood. Hours passed. The sun began to go down behind the tall trees, making long, twisted shadows that danced like ghosts around him. He felt a growing sense of rush, as if he were running out of time, though he couldn't say why. The whispers in the trees grew louder, clearer. He swore he heard his name, a faint, drawn out whisper on the wind. Lion. He found it just as the last light faded from the sky. It was a clear space hidden deep within a thick group of twisted, very old trees. In the middle, a ring of stones, black and sharp, stuck out of the ground like broken teeth. And in the very center of the ring, sunk deep into the dirt, was a single plain wooden cross. Lion felt a coldness that went to his very bones. He walked towards the cross, his breath catching in his throat. Carved into the old wood, barely visible in the growing darkness, were two words: Silas stuck. And then he heard it, clear as day, a low, deep moan coming from under the ground. The metallic smell was very strong now, and the air around the stone circle seemed to hum with an unseen power. The whispers in the trees came together into a single, chilling voice, seeming to come from all directions at once, yet nowhere in particular. You have found the way, Liam, but the way back, that is a different journey. Fear took hold of him. He turned to run away, but his feet felt stuck to the ground. The trees around the clear space, once still, now seemed to move with an unnatural rhythm. Shadows stretched and twisted, reaching for him like grabbing claws. He looked back at the cross, at the chilling words, and understood. Silas hadn't just disappeared. He had become part of something, part of the dark secret that held Blackwood Creek in its grip. The ground under his feet began to shake. The moaning grew louder, rising to a painful cry. Lion felt a cold, unseen hand touch his cheek, and the whispers in the trees surrounded him. No longer just voices, but a chorus of pain and ancient power. He knew then that he hadn't just found Silas's secret, he had become the next part of it. The locket had guided him not to a discovery, but to a destination. And as the darkness swallowed him whole, he realized Silas's warning had not been about finding the secret, but about the terrifying cost of understanding it. He was now truly stuck, just like Silas, and in Blackwood Creek, yesterday, today, and tomorrow were all just part of the same endless, whispering night.